So, hi there, and welcome to Poetry Passages. I'm Clifford Rames, and it's great to be back with a new installment of the David Budbill Poetry Series, a celebration of the life and poetry of poet David Budbill, presented to you in partnership with the literary estate of David Budbill. Now, as some of you already know, David Budbill was a beloved poet and playwright from Vermont. And David sadly passed away in 2016, but over the course of his lifetime, he authored 8 books of poetry and 7 plays. David was also a huge fan of jazz, and he often enjoyed setting and performing his poems to music. Joining me today is one of David's longtime collaborators, musician William Parker. Hi, William.
Hi, hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for coming on the program. It's great to finally connect with you. So, according to your official bio, you were born in the Bronx, New York, and you are a bassist, improviser, composer, writer, and educator. Did I get that all right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. Um, and this part is really so cool. The Village Voice has called you the most consistently brilliant free jazz bassist of all time. That's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm just trying to find what I'm supposed to be doing and do it.
Well, it sounds like you're doing something right. When did the Village Voice say that about you? How long?
Oh, I don't know. That was in the 90s, I
In the
guess.
90s, yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure you've gotten even better since then.
Time, time has moved on since then.
A lot has happened
Right,
since
and
then.
hopefully discovered more stuff and the music has grown and,
Right.
you know, against
Yeah, yeah.
the background of non-support of art and this closing down of so many little avenues and places where people could experience music and art and dance
Mm,
and poetry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember back in the day, I mean, things have changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. And I remember there were so many more like bookstores that had live music. There were so many sort of coffee bars that had live music. A lot of them are gone now. It's kind of a sad statement. But
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the internet, but since the internet arrived, our whole society has changed.
it's changed. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really moved away from people talking to people live and people
Yeah.
greeting people and going out, and it's always now it's about um, what's on the tube and YouTube and you know and then with COVID we had streaming, so it's been we're going through a rough patch of obstacles, but the music continues and what more is important is the poetry inside the music.
Exactly. Yeah. But and you just performed recently. You're performing still, and I understand you were just in Philadelphia recently.
Yeah, last weekend I played in Philadelphia
Yeah.
and played this week. Going to play next week. So a few little things in New York. New York's a big city, so there's always something happening, and
Yeah.
people are opening up to coming out and trying to do that safely, of course.
Well, and you play more than just the bass, from what I understand. You play many instruments. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I'm also playing shakuhachi, Japan, and the six-string harp from Mali called dusangoni, and other instruments,
Yeah.
tuba, and
And
trying,
tuba.
yeah, I
So
practiced
cool.
that tuba till 5 minutes ago.
You were playing the tuba about 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So your mouth is all loosened
I
up. Huh?
have to get these long tones in every day.
And well, you've released over 150 albums. Is that right? Or is it even
Well,
more now?
well, I've been on over, I don't know, over 200 albums as
You've
a
been on over 200
leader,
albums.
and probably as a leader, I've got about 50 albums.
Wow.
At least. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Because we
That's a
released
stat.
we released a 10 CD set last year. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's 10 right there. So
Wow, 10 in 1 year.
yeah,
Wow.
the number's going. I should actually uh, retrieve that information when asked about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just either way, it's a staggering amount. You've also written 6 books and have taught and mentored hundreds of young musicians and artists. And you also recorded several albums with David Budbill, two of which I have here, Songs from a Suffering World, which is from 2003.
Ah,
And
yes.
I also have Zen Mountain, Zen Streets, which is a little bit older from 2000, I mean, from 1999. So obviously you and David go way back. How did you first meet him and start
Well,
performing with him?
I met David around 1986, and
Wow.
in when did I met him in Burlington, Vermont. But previously, he had sent me a letter saying that I did an interview for Coda magazine, a Canadian magazine, and he was, and I guess in the article that was written about me, the interview, I kept talking about hope and healing, and that was the purpose of art. So that sort of rang a bell in him and lit up a little light inside me when he sent me a letter and said, he was interested in, in meeting me. And so I was doing a concert in Burlington, Vermont at City Hall, and he came to the concert.
Mm.
And so from there, I remember I've got books that he signed for me in 1988 that he sent to me, so it must have been 1988 that I began to 1988, 87, I began to read his work. And I was just it really touched me because uh, coming out of the Black arts movement, and I was reading poetry, by people like Mary Baraka and Bob Kaufman and Ted Jones, and a lot of the poetry was Black protest poetry.
Mm.
It wasn't so much about people as it was about getting people riled and awake and more cathartic ideas of self-determination, of self-awareness, and that America has to change, about history. So when I read David's work, I had no idea what it was about. I had no idea, what it was about. And so we started talking about Judavine in those books. They were, I have them over here, small books that by published by a small press, and it was just beautiful because even though I was living in the city and moving along the idea of freedom and protest, there was also this underneath that was the idea of spirituality
Mm.
and dealing with revolution comes from the inside out, and it starts from the inside and then moves out from yourself to through your work and whatever you're going to do in your life, because your life is your work.
Right.
And the other thing that really got me to David is that, well, first of all, I liked him as a human being. We started talking about uh, breakfast the next morning. I think he spent the night down in Columbia, New York, where we were staying, and we started talking about home fries and American diners and how the idea of make sure the home fries have celery and peppers and onions.
And onions.
So we really, because I'm like a duality in a sense. In one sense, I'm again city person, but the other sense, I love the idea of people all over America trying to live their lives and make sense of why they're here and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so his poetry and the way he was just very inspiring to me. First of all, it inspired me that big things just lead to bigger things, which lead to the city that we have here in New York and our life now. We keep growing and growing and growing, and
Right.
the further we move away from nature, the harder our hearts become.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his thing was, the more you move towards nature, the softer your heart becomes and the bigger your vision becomes.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was about, is that you have to go inside to see the world. And you can learn more from looking at the sky and looking at trees and feeling that the trees and birds and water moving and mountains tell the whole story. And
Mm.
all what we've developed in life is basically, as society, is cutting down trees,
Yeah.
is building roads so cars can go through roads. It's always about destroying nature for our own needs. And we call that
Right.
progress, where David's message was, progress is about going inside and finding that beautiful world of where you where it blossoms all the time, and that
Mm.
says everything. It's like in the city we take everything for granted. While if you move towards the country, when you go to the store, it's to get a milk or to get the bookstore to buy a book, it becomes a big event. You're waiting to Saturday all week to go to the bookstore to get your book. And then when you get it, it's like, wow, it's like we used to do in the Bronx when I was a kid, buying records. Me and my brother would save money to get the latest Sonny Rollins record, and we'd get the record and we would listen to the first side one day, then the next side the other day, and then we listened to the same record all week and analyze the solos, and became a big deal because people said to me, well, you can get all of John Coltrane's whole sessionography and discography in 1 second on the internet. Every record he recorded, you can put it on a little thing like that,
Yep.
you have it. But it wasn't about that. It was about really going in, relishing what you had and appreciating it. And that progress was not more, progress was actually less.
Wow. I don't know how old you are, but when would you say this was that you were going down to buy the Sonny Rollins albums with your brother?
Well, I
What
was born in 50.
1950s?
Yeah, and no, I was born in 52.
52,
So
okay.
so it must have been like in the early 60s.
Early 60s. So that's really kind of the height of the jazz sort of scene in New York City. Sort of 57, 58 to the early 60s. It was really happening back then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so much was happening. And then the thing is that people, it became like stores closing. And then the idea is you don't have LPs anymore, you have CDs.
Yeah.
You don't have CDs anymore. Now you have streaming, and you don't have little stores, you have malls. And it just sort of, it's not progress. We have the wrong idea of progress. Like
Yeah.
making it in America is making as much money as you can make, rather than saying, okay, making it in America might be, if you saw a bird on the side of the road and you took that bird home, and you cured that bird and helped a bird with a broken wing,
Mm.
out. That's progress.
Yeah.
And so again, flipping over David's poetry, as I guess people have been reading in this series, it really leans at that, and it touches something that may still not be, people are not aware of, or it regenerates our original inclination of what life is about.
Right.
And because everybody wants to be hip, but the hippest thing is to be yourself.
And to be
And
kind.
and
Yeah.
and yeah, little steps, little movements toward kindness.
Yeah.
And it's the freest thing in the world because you don't have to pay anything to be kind to people,
No.
to be nice to people. I think it doesn't cost you anything.
And the in reverse, you get a lot from it. You get lots of reward
Yeah,
from it
yeah,
without having to spend anything.
yeah. And that's not the motivation. The motivation to do it, but there is a residual there as
Right.
as you
Yeah.
begin to grow as a human being.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's really, really, really great.
Right. And that a lot of that was messages within David Budbill's poetry. And I think you probably already partially answered the question, but I wanted to ask what it is about jazz in particular that makes it such a great match for poetry, and in particular the poetry of David Budbill.
Well, the idea is to be independent of the poetry, but also to be in sync with it and to exist, to have autonomy plus unity at the
Hmm.
same time. It's like a garden that where you have all these different plants growing and they're different colors and they're different shapes. But in the garden, they look beautiful and they support each other. Because I guess when David said, okay, let's do some concerts together, I'm not sure uh, when that happened, but shortly after, maybe in the early 90s, um, whenever that first record, Zen Mountain, Zen Streets, we were already, when was that recorded?
19 released in 1999.
Okay, so we did a series of concerts in Vermont. He got grants, and I came to his house to Judavine Mountain up there in Walcott, and
Walcott, yeah.
I never. It's like, wow, what kind of places? I never was at a place like this, and it just was. I just, you know, it just took me. And so we never really said, okay, when I do this poem, you do this. Or when I play this, you do that. We sort of, he read and I played. And then I tried to not follow, but I tried to use the idea of contrast. It's like the words were shapes and colors, and the music was also shapes and colors, but also we were both backgrounds. So I never said anything about, or David never said, he always gave me complete freedom to do as I liked on the poems. But he always said, it really feels different when I have music. When I have music, because I did a lot of readings at the time, and he said, well, when I just read by myself, it's one thing, but when I have music, it's really great because we're dealing with vibrations and energy, and not so much he's singing a sad poem and I'm playing sad. You have double sad, but if he's saying something that's sad, maybe, then I'm playing what's inside that sadness,
Yeah, yeah.
which would be happiness. The next stop, happiness. The next stop, transformation. So that's kind of how it worked, and it was just great. Traveling through Vermont, and most of the time we did a concert and come back to Walcott. But sometimes when we had a longer drive, we'd stay at another place,
Mhm.
and then later on, David came down to New York and played and read at a festival we do here in New York called the Vision Festival. So he came down several times for that, and sometimes we had other gigs here in New York because the idea now is to get the poetry out. That's why this broadcast is so important,
Right.
to get the poetry out, because it does heal you, it does enlighten you, and it does just help you on your road to
Yeah.
transforming. And I think we were successful in that. People who experienced the poetry, they had the opportunity to be healed by what we were doing, and also to eventually go inside themselves to
Yeah.
heal.
Right. Well, on that note, I wanted to, I've actually queued up a track that you and David did together on the What I Saw This Morning album from 2016. I have it on my
Okay.
phone right
All right.
there.
All right.
Remember that one?
Yeah, yeah.
So 2016, that means that this was right before David died. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me play it, and I'll play it for everyone to hear a little snippet, and then we will talk more about it.
Okay.
What I saw this morning, his hands jammed deep into his pockets of his jeans, shoulders up around his ears. It's cold this morning. A young man waits to cross the road to go to the store for coffee, a donut, maybe a pakora, which the Indian family run the store to make, but only in the morning time. 30 years ago, or 60, other men stood in this same place, hands jammed into their pockets, shoulders up around their ears. Now those guys are dead, and this young man is here to take his turn.
So to me, that seems as though, I'm sorry I cut it short. I just wanted to go on listening, but it is online. You can find it. It's the David Budbill, William Parker, What I Saw This Morning album from 2016. So to me, that sounds like something that you and David did in New York City. Am I guessing right or wrong?
Well, the album was recorded in Vermont.
In Vermont, okay.
Yeah, I came up because something just told me, well, we have to do this album. So I found a studio not too far from Montpelier, and I drove up. And David met me, and we recorded it. But his poetry was not just about landscapes. His poetry was mostly about people, you know, and people and how they felt and their ups and downs. Funny people, people who meditated, people who were workers, you know, workers who told funny stories, workers who just had a struggle with life, and people who worked at the post office, people who worked in gas stations, people who worked in the snow lifts, people who were tree cutters, and all of these people. I think a lot of the inspiration was around where when he came from New York to Vermont, were people he saw there and neighbors. And it really was, what was wonderful is that you can go anywhere and begin to plant things, and things begin to grow. So he went to Vermont and not only began planting a garden in his yard, but he began to look around. And there was no walls between the inspiration that was flowing through him and where it went and came out as writing. Every winter he would bunker down and just write.
Right.
And,
Well,
and
the whole Judavine series of poems is sort of the fruit of the seed that David planted, right? He created this Judavine as an artistic expression of all the things that he was seeing around him and the people that he was meeting. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. That's so cool. During this performance, did you know at the time that David was sick, or?
yeah.
Yeah, he sounds really strong. I mean, he was.
Yeah, no, he was. We had done previously. I'd come up to do a reading of to do some music to one of his plays that that was done I forget the name of the city, but I'd come up several times, during that year, and I try to come up as much as I could uh, to communicate and play and visit with David and his wife Lois, uh, because it was just something was saying it was very important to do this. And I wish I had done it more. I wish we had just really hung out more. I was always so busy. I'd
Yeah.
go up and I have to get back downtown and go to Europe or go here, go here. And I wish I had time just to hang out for 2 weeks, which I never did, with nothing to do except, absorb their energy,
Yeah.
absorb
Yeah.
how, and go out and help dig in the fields and dig up the potatoes and things like that. But it's hard to know the right thing, at the right time all the time in life.
Right.
And it's always like you do what you can do. And, but you're always trying to, strive because you can feel things. And we're all not going to be here forever.
No.
And that's why, it's so important that we're doing this. And I like to say something also about the opera by Eric Nielsen.
Yeah.
It's like I never tell him this because I've been so busy. I haven't called him, but he sent me the link to it, and it's really really captures the whole idea of David's work.
Yeah.
In Judavine. I mean, it's like so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really great. So Eric, if he's listening.
Well, he was on. He was actually the guest in the previous installment of the
all
series.
Praise to you, Eric. That was beautiful. And I just wish that the whole world could see this and get involved in this. I mean, imagine, people getting involved in the idea of poetry and human beings, how they feel, and being compassionate towards them. It's just so important because that's what's lacking.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit about your the sort of the vibe on stage with David, and I know that he also played some instruments. I think he did some flute work or something, right?
Yeah, he played the shakuhachi.
The shakuhachi.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he loved playing the shakuhachi because it blended in with his whole environment there. And that was previously, there we are playing shakuhachi with Hamid Drake. And because previously, I believe he played trumpet at first, and then he had a accident with a saw, and I think he switched to saxophone, and then he hope this is accurate. And then then later on he went to shakuhachi, which was a perfect accompaniment to the poetry, as well as tea.
Tea also goes together perfectly. Yes. So did you guys ever get into a jam where you just kept on playing and it went on forever and ever, and it was so beautiful? And it seems like it would happen.
Unfortunately, it didn't happen. That's the time when I said, I got to go back to New York. But if I hadn't stayed, and I'm sure we would have gotten into something, because the more it was beginning to unflower and
right.
really and blossom in certain ways.
Sure.
I would have liked to have done a run at a theater where it's just David reading and the music, and it could have been great. So
right. Well, as we heard in that clip, David has such a distinctive voice for reading his poems, and to the point where once you've heard him read one of his poems, you can't really hear it any other way, especially when he puts it to music. But with that said, I mean, the whole purpose of this series is to spread the love of David's poetry and to get more people reading it and enjoying it. So I think you said you have a David Budbill book right there
Yeah.
with you. Can you tell us about it and if there's something you want to read from it?
Yeah, I do. It's called Drink a Cup of Loneliness, and copyright 2006. I'm not sure when this poem was written, but to me, it says a lot. I have a whole stack of books over there, and I just grabbed this one, and I'll read it for you.
Great.
Drink a cup of loneliness. Looking for a place to hide, Judavon Mountain will keep you safe. Here's a place to lose yourself and forget about the world. Just wind through pines and the sound of rain. The longer you stay, the more withdrawn you get. The better you'll like it here. Drink a cup of loneliness and see what I mean. There's a gray-haired guy up there who spends his days playing flutes and writing poems. He can tell you more.
Classic David Budbill. Wonderful.
Yeah, and that's just, and the thing is that his all his writing is in 6 lines and 5 lines. He can get you. He
Right.
can grab you and get you to begin to, oh, okay. And you not only, it shuts your mind off, but you begin to feel it more than think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You begin to think, and then just feel. And I think it's through feelings, like they say, feelings came before words. And so you feel something, and then you say, ouch. So you really begin to feel it, and you want to hear more. And then at the end of any of the books, you begin to get a sense of this inner beauty. This bell ringing. It's great. The pouring of tea, the sound of water going into a vessel. I mean, it's quite a life, and it's I just wish it had not been cut short, because we just getting warmed up.
Just getting warmed up, yeah. Well, you and I met for the first time up in Montpelier, Vermont last year, where you performed a concert celebrating the life and work of David Budbill. Can you tell us a little bit about that event and how it came to be?
Well, on my end, I guess in 2 years, David passed away in 2016.
Right?
Yeah. I think in 2017, I went up to Vermont with a couple of musicians, and they were doing a small celebration for David with the people from Scrag Mountain. And that was the first thing I participated in. Then I guess last year I had a residency at a place called The Stone out of the New School in New York, and we did a piece for 4 shakuhachis and voices. And did we do David's poetry? We might have done some of David's poetry, but it was we did some of David's poetry, because each of the singers did an interpretation of one of the poems, and we had shakuhachi and frame drum, and we had actually quadruple, 4 shakuhachis and frame drum, and then out of that grew the idea of, why don't we try to bring that to Vermont? So I actually got a touring grant from Mid-Atlantic Arts Council and the David Budbill Foundation. Lois Eby and Nadine Budbill, they raised money. And the Scrag Mountain Theater raised money. And
for people who don't know, Scrag Mountain and their musical group, or
they're Evan Primo and Mary Bogheim and Laura, what's her name? Oh, I just had her name in my head.
It's
But
okay.
we'll have to slip there. Um, but they do concerts all the time. They just did a production of Thumbelina,
Hmm.
and they do concerts all year round. And so Eric Nielsen had composed a couple of pieces from David's poetry, and then I had four singers and Hamid Drake and myself. I think it was six people altogether. Let me see, Kyoko. Yeah, I think four singers. And so we did work the same. It's kind of what we did at the new school with different arrangements. And then I did a piece um, for the whole group together that we did. Um, and it was quite successful. Well, you were there. I thought it was quite successful,
Yeah.
and really tried to convey some of that feeling of imagery and unity and togetherness that that Vermont nature has, and what David brought to
Right.
the community up there.
Yeah, I know. No, I really enjoyed it. It was a powerful performance and very moving to see. But I was also wondering about you and how you felt. I mean, it was probably the first time one of the first times doing all of this, going through all of that without David. And what did that feel like I guess
Well,
you missed him.
I feel like this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
I did another piece during the year of the COVID. We did a piece for two singers and piano down in New York, and we did a Corot's Pool, which is one of his poems. And then I'm thinking about what we're going to do in the future. The next thing is, I think that every year to do something dedicated to David.
Yeah.
Whenever I can, maybe even another CD. We don't know, but I have to keep that because it's very powerful and it has to live. And the books are wonderful because every time you read the book, it goes right inside you,
Yeah.
whatever book, you know. And so you have the books, and then we try to do it with the music and with the voices.
Do you have any archival recordings of David with you and David that you haven't released yet that you could tap into or?
Well, yeah, there are a few things. We went to Milano, Italy,
Yeah.
years ago, and so I'm still working on trying to get those tapes together
Yeah.
and maybe releasing that because that's like David with a full uh, quartet. I think we had the jazz quartet there, and so I'm still trying to get that together. That would be really interesting to release. It was just me, him, or me, him, and Hamid Drake, and it was more in the feel of meditative stuff. But David had a piece about John Coltrane called "Love Supreme," and he had a lot of sort of urban poetry that we would do, particularly when he came down to New York. That maybe we didn't get so much done. You talk about a falcon or a bird, but he was also talking about Bird, Charlie Parker, and John Coltrane and Sonny Stitt. So it had a wide range of stuff.
Mm.
So hopefully we can, you know, set some music to some of that stuff as well.
Yeah, yeah. Be great to do something with kids and sort of introduce it to a new generation
Well, we
of,
also did something years ago with some hip hop,
yeah,
which we did at a school, and David read, and it was very.
it
I
was
got
fun.
lucky you reminded me that I got to look up that tape too. So there are things we
Sounds
just
like a
have.
fun time. Yeah.
You just have to. There's so much to do.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, it's like it's over. So we have to work as fast and as thorough as we can,
I hear you.
and get a blending of people and ideas, and just keep moving forward.
And stay true to yourself. Yeah. Mm. Well, this has been great, William. I'm so glad you were able to come on and
Oh, thank you.
help us continue
My
this
pleasure.
celebration of David's life. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's wonderful what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, keep us informed. You have a website, right? This
Yeah,
is
I
what
do. I do. And it's
William Park.
rebuilt now, so it'll be up williamparkermusic.com
Okay, I'll put that in the comments below the link.
or
And
.net.
yeah, yeah. Let us know if anything new comes along that you guys are
Okay.
doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure. This is William Parker, everyone. And thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again real soon right here on Poetry Passages. Bye.